if you want to be seen as a leader, leaders don't say yes to everything. Leaders are very strategic and intentional about the things that they take on, the things that they do. They focus their time and attention on high value things, not low value things, right? Low value things are the things that they delegate. Delegation is key. So it's really important that if you want to be seen as a leader, you need to be showing up as a leader today. Not like, oh, I'll show up as a leader when I get the job or when I get the promotion. No, you need to demonstrate your ability to lead before you get it.
Hey guys, before we get started, I have one quick favor to ask of you. Can you please hit the subscribe button so that more people can find the show? Thank you. Why are women working themselves into exhaustion?
Oh my goodness. There are so many reasons, Eugene. I like to say that women work a third shift that no one talks about, right? It's the unpaid labor, caregiver, mental load of managing everything for everyone on top of the full-time job. It's like Santa has elves, everyone else has women. And we've been conditioned, though, to believe that saying yes equals success, right? But all it really does is leave us overworked, overwhelmed, undervalued, and really over it. There are things that husbands, and I'll use the analogy of married couples, right? But husbands don't really have to think about during the workday because their wife takes care of all of that. She's the one thinking about the soccer matches and the pack lunches and all the things. So he could just be fully himself, focused on the work. But she's juggling everyone else in her thoughts as well as the work. So it isn't just the physical aspect of things, but there's the mental and emotional depletion that comes with carrying the weight of everyone else's needs, and including her own.
And do you feel that that's biologically uh, part of a woman, or that's something that's been conditioned over time?
I think it's been something that's been conditioned over time. I think it's really from a societal perspective. When I think, so I have a daughter and I have sons, right? So and when I think back to when they were coming up, and even myself, the first thing my daughter was given were things to make her condition her to be a caregiver. A baby doll, which is something that she takes care of. She feeds, she diapers, she makes sure its needs are met. Easy bake oven. How do you cook and prepare food, not just for yourself, but to feed other people? Everything that we tend to condition girls with from a societal perspective is to give outside of herself.
And going a level deeper on that,
Mm-hmm.
even without the toys, it's children like to mirror what their parents do. So
Mm-hmm.
regardless, even if you were to say, okay, I'm going to give the dinosaurs and the cars to my daughter, and she's going
Yeah.
to say, oh, but I want to be like mom, and mom is
Mm-hmm.
doing the cooking and the cleaning. If mom's not
Yeah.
playing with the dinosaurs and the cars, then she's going to try and mimic mom more and be like, no, I'm going to take care of this dinosaur.
No,
So, so, so,
it's so
so
true because they do what they see, right? They do
yes,
what they
yes.
observe because that's the parents are your first teacher. And so while you're giving them things, they're also mimicking the roles that they see played out in front of them. So true.
And do you think that given that conditioning from an early age, that plays a role into how they define success later in their career or how they look for validation later in life? This is something that I've seen is that the the narratives that we get told or the thoughts um, that we build in our early childhood may serve us in our early childhood and then growing up. But once we kind of leave the nest and once we go into the workplace ourselves and find ourselves as adults and realize that we're all the same as we were 10 years ago, we're all still just winging it. And next thing is like, oh, but this is the way I've been taught. This is what success looks like, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel happy. But this
Mm-hmm.
is the way it's been taught. Um, is there something wrong with me? Am I ungrateful? Why am I exhausted all the time? I should be enjoying a successful life. I don't want,
Mm-hmm.
and a big one is to say, I've got the house, I've got the car, I've got the white picket fence, but I feel so drained. I feel so empty, and I don't know who I can turn to for help because everyone says I should be grateful for what I have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned those things because I think for me the turning point was when I really determined that the definition of success that I was using for success didn't come from me. It was kind of the definition that was given me. It was the definition that was demonstrated for me. But when I stripped away everyone else around me and really just got clear on me, what does success look like for me? What would make me the happiest in my own body? What is that? Regardless of what others may think about it, that's when I got clarity on what success looks like. And I think, you know, this may not be popular, but I truly believe that women and men can have it all. But the way in which you can have it all is that you have to define what all looks like for you. It has to be your own definition of what that looks like. So, what success looks like, what happiness looks like, you need to define it for yourself. And others may not accept that. But often we want other people to be accepting of that definition. We want them to believe in that definition. We don't like to be alone on out on that limb by ourselves. And you have to be like radical in the sense that no one else has to have that definition. No one else has to believe in the definition, but I have to be so head over heels in love with my definition of success, all happiness, whatever, pick the word and fill it in, that I'm willing to stand 10 toes down on that thing if I'm standing alone and be rooted and grounded in that. And but I do think that people gravitate to the definition of success that someone that has been given to them versus the definition that they've get created for themselves.
Yeah, I can 100% relate with that because that was how I burnt out in the first place. I mean, at 27, I had been taught, I was like, okay, you got out of university, get yourself a job. Great, you got the job. Okay, now you can save up for a house. Okay, that's the only thing you need to be focused on. I was like, okay, great. I'm going to spend the next few years
Mhm,
put my head down the same way I did in university and just worked until I could save up for a deposit down on the house. And it's like, okay, I got the house. And they're like, well, now that you've got the house, you've got to make sure you've got one, two, three, all of this. Once you have all of this in place, then you'll be happy. Then you'll be successful. And I
mhm,
found myself, I hit rock bottom, exhausted. I was like, is this really how I want to spend the next 40 years? And the
mhm,
first person I said to that, they were like, but you have a secure job. Why would you look for anything else? You can stay in this place for 40 years. There's no progression, and that's okay. You don't have to work any harder than what you're currently doing. And I was like, yes, but I don't feel happy. And by me giving up here, it was just not in my nature. I was this high achiever, type A mindset. I was like, I want to do more. I want to learn more.
mhm,
I want to grow. And this job was like, no, you're only being paid from the neck down. We're not paying you to think or make decisions here. You should be grateful for that. You don't have those
mhm,
responsibilities. And I was like, no, I'm looking to give more. And
mhm,
because of that incongruency in values, it was no longer
mhm,
aligned. It worked for the first few years, but I hit a
mhm,
plateau. And because nothing was being offered, and I was looking for help or support going forward. But the narrative was, no, you should be grateful for where you are because that's someone else's definition of success. And
mhm,
for you to look for more makes you look ungrateful. And
mhm.
that was the narrative that had been drilled into me that, oh, this is my plateau, this is someone else's dream. And I'm not happy with that, but I should be grateful. And to look for anything more makes me selfish.
Yeah, I heard that same narrative, Eugene. Like I was just like, and so as you were saying it, I was like, was he there? there because that's the same thing, right? You should be grateful for what you have. There's so many people out in the world that want what you have and you got it and you're not happy with it. Shame on you. Like, yeah, no, I know that narrative oh so well. Um, but the thing that I find, you said this one thing, you said from the neck down. And I think that's the thing. There, when you get to a place where you have the mind and the heart connected, and you are not just operating from, the neck up, you really have a connection with there should be more. I want more. I I need more. Um, in order to be happy, to truly feel fulfilled, that's when you actually have that mind and heart connection that's happening. And there's nothing wrong with that. And for someone else to say that you're selfish because what you want, what you have, you want more than what you currently have. You want something different than what you currently have. That that's not their right, right? It's not for them to judge what you want and kind of project on you. And I think, the adage that we hear is misery loves company is true. They don't know that they're miserable. Maybe they do know that they're miserable. And they just want you to stay on the same wavelength with them. So how dare you want something different?
Yes, that was one of the biggest deflections that when I first started podcasting, that's what I heard a
Mm-hmm,
lot. A lot of people were like, "Oh no, we don't talk about that around here. You really shouldn't talk about your mental health online. That's career suicide. You know that, right? No one will ever want to employ you again." And they they thought that they were thinking in my best interest, say
mm-hmm,
acting out of concern for me, saying, no, you should just take all of this down. Stop talking to people online. Stop talking about your mental health. Stop talking about what you would like to change and
mm-hmm,
lay low for a few weeks, and this will all blow over and everyone will forget and everything will be back to normal. And I was like,
mm-hmm.
well, that's not what I want.
Yeah.
And that deflection was supposed to shut me up. If
Mm-hmm,
anything, I was like, wow, so many people are uncomfortable talking about their mental well-being,
mm-hmm,
how they struggle with something in the workplace,
mm-hmm,
and they don't want to speak up about how to change it because we are conditioned from an early age not to speak up in class, not to draw attention to ourselves, and to
mm-hmm,
do so you get punished. And
mm-hmm,
that conditioning we still see in the workplace, people in their 40s and 50s, and they say, no,
mm-hmm.
you're better off just staying quiet,
Uh-huh.
taking what they pay you, keeping your head
Uh-huh.
down, and then just
Uh-huh.
venting when you leave work or
Yeah.
venting
Over a
behind the boss's
cocktail.
back.
Vent with your raggedy friends over a cocktail. Because everybody has a miserable life. You're all miserable together. So we're going to go to a happy hour and we're going to commiserate over a pint about how miserable we are and how much we want things to change. But Monday morning, we're going to show up and do the same thing. Say nothing, do nothing different.
Yes, and I think that's exactly what leads us all into burnout. And but then
It does.
the thing is that no one wants to talk about it then, and they stay
Hmm.
stuck in that loop.
And it's there's power in the vulnerability, right? And I think that's the thing that people miss is that there is power in being vulnerable. And I also think from a place of a leader, it when you are able to truly be open and honest and vulnerable with your team, it allows them to understand and gives them permission to also do the same. That it's okay. Leaders don't get it all right all the time. Leaders don't have all the answers. Newsflash, right? And they're human. They put their pants on one leg at a time, just like each and every one of you. And yes, they are the leader. They're getting paid more, but that doesn't mean that they're always right. It doesn't. They have struggles on a daily basis, just like every other person on their team. But the problem is, none of them want to admit it. And they don't want to admit it. I had absolutely no problem telling my team, today is not a good day. I'm not having a good day. I would love to help you solve that problem. I don't have the capacity to today. There's nothing wrong with that. And they understood that. But also, it allowed them to be able to say to me, Dana, today is not a good day. I don't have the capacity to take on what you're asking of me today. That's how you create a safe space, truly.
Yes, in create that's how open communication works, and creating
Mm-hmm,
safety, as you said, creating psychological safety within a
mm-hmm,
team.
mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people uh, project that say, "Oh, this is a safe place for everyone to share how they feel," but it often
They
gets
don't
held
want you
against
bringing
them.
that. Look, they don't want you bringing that. Like, let's be honest, right? Companies say the things that are marketable, right? This sounds right. This is a thing that people want to hear us say. And they do it, right? Town halls, all the things, the press releases, all of that. But in reality, that is not what they practice. It's not what they practice. Because if they did, the work environment would look a lot different. People would feel a lot different in the work environment than they do.
Yeah, I've experienced some companies who were marketing about being a DEI, and next thing I looked at their programs, I was like, wow, it was like you have it's such an international company, but everything was all in one language. And I was like, would it not help because it's an international company to maybe provide it in English? And then they were like, oh no, no, we're not going to provide this in English. If anyone wants it in English, they can use Google Translate. And I was
Mm-hmm,
like, well, that's not very inclusive for all your English speaking employees. I
mm-hmm,
was like, do we not have DEI written like on a big banner in our reception area? And then they're like,
mm-hmm,
oh yes, yes, but that doesn't apply here. Not for this. I was like,
mm-hmm.
okay, interesting.
Mhm, mhm. Well, now, Eugene, there's a war on DEI, as they say, right? It's like no one want now everybody who was in DEI, and it was the norm, right? It was the marketable thing to have a DEI program and to talk about how you have diversity, equity, and inclusion. Um, and you have a division that does that and responsible for that. And the reality now we don't want to do that anymore. At the end of the day, we're human beings, right? We're all human. There are more things that make us alike than different. And if we just focus on treating others how we want to be treated, how about we just start there with common decency? Um, that would go a mighty long way. From a DEI perspective, the diversity, equity, and inclusion perspective, if we're not going to do that, then we don't need to have age and race and sex on job applications because that shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter what my ethnicity is. It shouldn't matter whether I'm a male or a female. It shouldn't matter what my age demographic is as long as I'm of legal age to work. So why are we asking those questions if it doesn't matter?
It was interesting because when I was job hunting in Ireland, the
Mhm,
standard resume layout, you have your name, you might have your phone number, but you don't have a photo, you don't have your gender or your date of birth or anything on that.
mhm,
So and then I applied for a job in Switzerland, and they were like, "Well,
mhm,
you had a very very strange resume. We didn't know if you were a man or if you were a woman, or we don't know how old you were, and it's very confusing for the team." And I was like, "Well, I'm here in person at the interview. I'm meeting the whole team. I'm pretty sure I
mhm.
can answer all of those questions for you if you have them now."
Yeah.
And I was like, "That doesn't bother me, but you're going to judge that from a piece of paper."
Mhm.
And they're like, oh no, it's not that we were going to judge, but it would have given us a better overview of what kind of person you were. And I was like, oh really? So this is a game I love. I love play or observing how people
Yeah.
try to worm their way out of those situations after landing themselves 6 feet deep in them.
So smack in the middle.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
so I love I love
Yeah.
I love just being like, okay, how are you going to worm your way out of this one? Um, and that was one thing I just loved about it. I was like,
Yeah.
so so,
It's
so
it's
you, they
interesting,
want to
right?
judge
Because
everything by the photo. Yeah.
it's interesting because having led, global teams, right? There are certain things from a European perspective they're not tracked, that are not categorized, that are not asked, that you cannot ask, you should not ask, and things of that nature. But it differs in other countries. And so it makes it difficult from an HR perspective, because now we're over here measuring what's the percentage of your team that's made up and looks like this. Well, you only have part of the data, because part of your team is in a country where you can track that, and you don't have data in other places. The reality is, why do you need that? You're hiring people to do a job. It doesn't matter. What matters most is their ability. Are they capable? Do they have the skills? Can they learn, right? And evolve and grow as the role evolves and grows. Those are the things that are most important. It doesn't matter if it's a male or a female doing the role. It doesn't matter if that person came from Zimbabwe or Ireland or Switzerland, or what their ethnic background makeup is. None of that really matters. It shouldn't matter. Let me say it that way. It shouldn't matter. But in a lot of places, it seemed to matter.
Yeah, like I found the only job conditions like that I found were like necessary, were
Mm-hmm.
things like, oh, do you have a driving license because you need to drive a truck? I was like, okay, well
Mm-hmm.
that's fair. That
Yeah.
should be on the application. And
Mm-hmm.
are things that are very specific to an ability, or you need a certain certification in terms of
Mm-hmm.
safety certification, whatever. It was like, yes, they are very understandable in the role. But I was job hunting for about 3 or 4 months when I quit my last job, and the rationale that companies had in the hiring process, one of them in particular, and I really had to hold myself back in the interview. They kept on asking me if I had any disabilities, and I was like, okay, I was like, and this was like the second round interview, and I was like, um, no, not like we went through medical screening and everything, and they were like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, like anything, like even like ADHD or diabetes or anything, and I was like, no, and they were like, oh, well, this is part of our DEI program, and we're particularly looking for someone to fit in the disability category for inclusiveness, and I was like, so I, I can't apply for this job because I don't have a disability. I was like, is that what you're saying? It's like, oh, that's not exactly what we're saying, but this was specifically what we were looking for this role. And straight up, I was like, if this is your hiring process, for me, it was a no. Anyway, I was
Mm-hmm.
like, wow, this even in itself was a toxic recruitment process. And I was like, so if
Yeah.
this is recruiting, I don't want to be a part of this company. But it was very interesting how people tried to worm their way around, rather than
Mm-hmm.
being like, we're looking for a certain dynamic within a team. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, and especially focusing on workplace culture and everything on the podcast, I'm hyper aware about all of these things uh, in the environment around me. So when I hear these questions, a little buzzer goes off in my head, and there are like alarm bells, and being like,
Mm-hmm.
what just happened right now? Can I talk about what happened right now? Or do I need
Mm-hmm.
to go back and take a step back and go like, what were they really looking for here? And next thing,
Mm-hmm.
in these instances, I come back and I'm like, nope, it was pretty much at face value. I knew exactly what they were looking for, but it was uh, those questions being asked. It really puts a downer on people in the recruitment process, and in terms
Mm-hmm.
of what their worth is, and what
Mm-hmm.
some employers, let's say, they have expectations in the recruitment process,
Mm-hmm.
and they set very unrealistic ones of what exactly they're looking for. So oftentimes they don't know what they're looking for, and they're very
Mm-hmm.
quick to turn someone away without, let's say, listening to them, or what they could bring to the company.
Well, I think it's interesting, because I think that there are a lot of companies, very, and this statement covers the gamut, because regardless if it's a small company or a large, Fortune 500, Fortune 100 company, they rarely do workforce planning. they very rarely have a process by which they do workforce planning. And understanding the makeup of the organization, I'll even break it down smaller than the organization, a team. Understanding the makeup of your team, what you currently have from a skill set, knowledge perspective, understanding the future growth of the business that your team supports. Where are we now? Where are we going? Where do we need to be ready to support 5 years from now? And then how do we structure ourselves and look at the skill set within the organization to determine how do we best position ourselves to be able to do that when the time comes, right? Do we have the skills in house? Do we have people who we can train to have these net new skills to expand their knowledge and skill set? Do we need to hire a particular type of skill set into the team that's going to now give us the depth and the breadth that we need in order to get ourselves to where we want to be 5 years from now? And really planning accordingly. What are the critical roles within the organization? And I say roles, not people, because people, you don't have control over people. People can leave for a multitude of reasons. They can marry someone whose job is in another country and now they've left. You can have people who, unexpectedly pass away, or there's sickness or in their family. Different things happen that cause people to have to leave. So you have to look at the role that that person is fulfilling. Is the role a critical role? Is it one that all systems stop if this role ceases to exist? That's the question. It's the role, not the person in the role. And then do we have the bench strength and knowledge within the team to replace this person, right? So in the event that Sally, who's filling a critical role, leaves because she now hit the lottery, do we have the bench to move someone into that role within the organization? Do we have two or three people in mind that we are training up? Because that's a part of the process to ensure that you're running a high performing team that's well positioned, and you know what you have, and you know what you need, and you know how you're planning to get to fill those gaps accordingly over the course of time. But they very rarely do workforce planning to give themselves the best opportunity to ensure that I'm not only using the members that I have appropriately, but I'm also creating an opportunity for them to expand their skills and creating growth within the organization as well. So that keeps them energized. It keeps them excited about coming here because they're not stagnating. Stagnation is death. And people don't want to go somewhere where they just feel like, it's time to make the donuts, the widgets over and over again. So leaders have to also be thinking about creating an organization and an environment by which their team is excited to come. They're excited to contribute. They can see a future in this place, not just within the team, but within the organization, because they feel seen. They feel seen, they feel valued. Sorry, I get a little excited.
No, I love that, because one question that I always heard in the interview process, and it's like, oh, where do you see yourself in 10 years? And
Mhm.
they expect you to say within that company where you want to see yourself within 10 years. And I was always asked, like, when I even when I started a new job, and they asked me, oh, where do you see yourself in 10 years? And I was like, oh, I could be here. I could be halfway across the globe. Who knows? And it's like, why don't you see yourself here? And I was like, well, a lot can happen in 10 years. I was 10 years in my last job. I landed here. I could still be here in 10 years. I could still be here in 2 years and make a change. But we don't know how the business is going to go in 10 years. Business might no
Mhm.
longer exist. This team could change a lot in the next 2 years. This
Mhm.
team could change a lot in the next 5 years. But it's not, the onus isn't on the employee alone, that they need to stick here for 5 to 10 years for this to be worth it. If the
Yeah.
company is not creating opportunities and challenges for
Mhm.
growth,
Mhm.
then
Mhm.
they're the ones pushing the employee away. And
Exactly.
it's a two-way process. It's like, yes, the employee wants to grow, they
Mhm.
need the opportunities. And
Mhm.
if the opportunities are not presented to them within the company for that growth, of course they're
Yeah.
going to get sidetracked and look at the next shiny object. They're going to look
Mm-hmm.
at who's going to take them on and help them to grow and get them to where they want to be, or at least give
Mm-hmm.
them the opportunity to. So I think that's something that's overlooked a lot in companies. They're saying, oh, we only want someone here if they're going to stay here for the next 5 to 10 years. Then we'll invest in them. Rather than
Yeah.
putting forward and being like, we'd love if you could stay here for the next 5 to 10 years, maybe more. And this is how you can do that. These are the opportunities that we can present to you in the next 5 years if you are interested. Some people
That
just want to lay
that's it.
back. Some people just want to lay back and be like, "No,
Mhm.
I'm okay doing the routine work. Just give me the papers on my desk, and I'll move them from left to right. I can do
Uh-huh.
the simple tasks. Just give me that." Again, some people just want to be paid from the neck down because they
Yeah.
want to get the steady pay, go home, enjoy life. But then
Yeah.
there are the other people who want to like who wants to grow, who wants to
Mm-hmm.
succeed, who wants
Mm-hmm.
to level up or climb the ladder or something. And they
Yeah.
need to be presented with more opportunity. Not right now, but over time.
Absolutely. Over time. And here's the thing, companies do their annual planning, right? They set the objectives like clockwork, beginning of the year. These are objectives for the year. And then they push those down. And then the heads of the divisions, then they set their objectives to support those objectives. And then they push those down and they expect the employee to do the same. And it just like it's rinse and repeat. But there's no forward thinking beyond the year that we're in. And so I think that you raise a great thing. Like one of the things that I like to ask in the interview process, well, when I was interviewing, now I'm running a company of my own. So, but when I was in the interviewing process is, versus where do I see myself in the next 5 to 10 years? Where do you see this team, this organization in the next 5 to 10 years? What's the plan for that? What does that look like? I know what you do today because you shared that with me. Will the team be doing the same thing 5 years from now? Will that expand? What does that look like? As a leader, I would expect them to kind of have some forethought into that because that tells me the type of workforce planning that they are doing for not just themselves, but their team. They're thinking about, do I want my team to exist 5 years from now? And how am I positioning not only myself, but the organization I'm leading to exist, not in the current shape, but maybe in an expanded form? Being like you, a high achiever, I do want to have impact. I want where I'm contributing the majority of my time. If you really think about it, we spend more of our working hours in with our colleagues than we do with our families. And so the place where I'm spending the majority of my time, I want to make sure that I'm making a measurable impact, that I can see the contributions and the time that I'm investing going somewhere, doing something. And so that's really important to know and understand.
In the interview process, what question would you ask a potential team member, potential candidate?
Mhm. So being the fact that I'm doing the interviewing, I'm interviewing them,
Yes.
I would ask them what vision do they have for themselves? Because the vision that they have for themselves has absolutely nothing to do about the team and the organization. It tells me a lot about what they see for them, how they see themselves, their life, their impact beyond just the work that they do. As a leader for me, it has always been really important for me to see and understand the people that I'm leading, not just from the work that they're doing for me, but who are they? What makes them tick? What makes them excited? What gets them, what inspires them? What detracts from them? Because if I can understand them at that level, first and foremost, then I understand how to lead them. I understand what opportunities to present to them. I understand how to get the best out of them. And I firmly believe that employees really have a burning desire to be seen and heard and understood by the people that are leading them. Not just as, you know, Jane who does X, but Jane is a fantastic human being. She she knits blankets for babies in the NICU. She sings in the choir. She has two cats. She was married for a long time. She's a widower. She's a widow because her husband passed away. She's inspired by the color purple. And she's an early bird. So she likes to get up early in the morning, so you get the best out of Jane before 3 p.m. Like understanding who Jane is and what her makeup is and what makes her tick. That to me helps me, at least it has helped me as a leader, be able to understand how to lead those that have been within the organizations that I've been over. And it's also allowed me to kind of share with them a little more about who I am. And they feel like they know me. I'm approachable. And I think, excuse me, I think a lot of times leaders are unapproachable. They sit at a higher level within the organization. They only ever talk to their direct reports. They talk at the people within the organization from a town hall, but they are untouchable. That doesn't create a culture and an environment that makes people want a feeling of belonging, that they want to be there, that they feel seen and understood by you. I could tell you all the names of the people within my team. I knew who had kids, who didn't have kids, um, because I feel that the people, if I take care of the people from a leadership perspective, if I take care of the people will always take care of the work. My job and responsibility as a leader is first to the people. It ultimately, yes, I have objectives and goals that I have to meet from a organizational perspective, and they always get exceeded. Why do they always get exceeded? Because I'm taking care of the people appropriately. So what
I
vision
love
do they
that.
have for success?
It's something that's just so often overlooked because I've seen people going into leadership, oftentimes going to leadership for the wrong reasons. Because and I think this is something that uh, definitely seeing in boomers and millennials where they had and Gen X as well, where it's like, oh, you've been in this position for the last 20 years. It's time for you to move up to a line manager or leadership position. And it's like they're technical expertise, yes, but there's no way they can manage people. And next thing you put them into that position and they're like, oh, well, I know everything about the process. So they take ownership of the process and they micromanage their way. They have no experience with people at all. And next thing they're micromanaging everything because they don't trust people to do the process as well as they do. And they're taking full ownership and being like, I know how things should be done. So you should do it exactly the way that I show you to, but I'm not going to trust you. I'm going to overlook everything you do so you do it exactly how I do because I am the expert. And next thing, they end up absolutely exhausted, absolutely burnt out. And they're like, oh, I
Uh-huh.
used to love my work. I'm getting paid so much more than I used to, but I despise every day because of the people I have to work with and they don't do what I tell them to do. And I hear them talking behind my back and all. And this narrative going around in their heads is even worse. It's like, they're probably not even thinking about you half the time. They're thinking about
Yeah.
themselves. But it's just because they have this repetitive narrative and because they were never trained how to take care of people. They were just landed in this role because they had the experience, they had the expertise of 10 to 20
Yeah.
years. And they thought that this was, oh, this is how I move up the ladder. But it's like on the job training. It's like, oh, yes,
Yeah.
you'll figure it out. Once you're in that environment, you'll figure it out on your own. Don't worry about it.
Hmm.
And 9 times out of 10, you just see them burn out in like 6 months.
Burnout and basically destroy a team.
Oh,
Right?
yes.
The house comes tumbling down. They're burned out. The team is like dispersing because they don't want to work for this person. And that's not leadership, it's management, right? There's definitely a distinct difference. I have inherited many of the people you just described. And, you know, the organization does them a disservice in not preparing them for leadership and what leadership really means, how to be successful as a leader, and not every great doer makes a great leader, and not every great doer wants to be a leader. They don't necessarily have the aptitude or the desire to want to lead people. And that also needs to be taken in consideration. But you need to take the time to get to know them, to understand them and what makes them tick, what motivates them, and all of those things. And that was one of the things that I felt was really important, was to really prepare people who had a desire for leadership to be good leaders, to understand what that meant, what it looked like. And so we created within my organization, we created a leadership mentoring program that had 3 levels. There were people who aspired to be leaders, and so let's create an environment where you can learn what leadership looks like now. So when the opportunity presents itself, you've been prepared. And there was the second level where for people who had just become new leaders and they hadn't had, they were great doers that got placed into these roles. But let's help you be successful in the role as a leader. Let's teach you what that looks like, because it's drastically different than just being a good doer and telling people what to do and how to do it. That looks different. So let's prepare you for that. And then the third level was experienced leaders. They had been in that role, but they really hadn't been prepared. They were placed there and they were like winging it, doing the best they could. And so, how do we help you get on the right track with being successful as a leader? Yes, you've been placed here, but let's help you be successful from this point forward. And hopefully, stop the bleeding that you've already started. And that was really successful, to the extent that it ran for the time that I was there. I have no idea what's happening now, but it is something that, as part of my business, I've brought that in as an offering from a corporate client perspective, to help them create certain environments like that and stand up programs like that, so that they can then begin to think about the leaders of the future, creating that pipeline of leaders within their organization for the long-term success.
What I liked there about your 3 steps of leadership, you had the people who had no experience as a leader, who were aspiring and learning the process of how to become a leader. And that's something that I see overlooked all the time. They train, there's even the companies who have leadership training have leadership training for the leaders. And they overlook the employees who do not have leadership training. If the employees are not trained in leadership, they don't know what to look for in leadership.
My connection dropped.
Oh, you dropped it. I'll just repeat that part again. We were talking about the mentorship in leadership, the 3 steps. And so you had the aspiring leaders, or people who have no experience and they want to learn the steps of leader.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of companies leave that step out.
Mm-hmm.
And they only provide leadership training for the leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And leaders have workshops and trainings all the time. They're learning everything to do with leadership. And next thing, the team is like, "Oh wow, you've had so many leadership workshops. Can you tell us about it?" And they're like, "Oh no, it was just for the leaders. You don't have to worry about it." And it's not preparing them for the future if they want to aspire to be leaders, but it also does not set the expectation for the team what to expect of their leaders.
Yeah.
If the team understood what leadership really meant and what was the capacity of a leader, then they will become better followers. They will be a better part of the team if they understand, if they could understand what to look for in a good leader. And these are things that I have brought to the attention of so many people when they say, "Oh, my boss is a bad leader," and I'm like, "Okay, what do you look for in a leader?" And then they're like, "Oh, not to give out to me all the time, or not." And it's like, okay, but what are the values that you seek in a leader? Who would be a good leader for you? And a lot of times they don't know. They've never asked themselves that.
Oh, yeah.
They don't know what they're looking for, but they're like, "I don't know what I'm looking for, but that's not it." It's like, okay, let's narrow down what you don't like in that leader, and let's find the
Yes.
things that you do look for.
Like,
What
yeah.
would excite? What would light you up? What would really inspire you in a leader?
Yeah.
So that's one big thing that I feel is missing, or that's overlooked a lot. Yes, it's like it's either You have leaders and managers who learn on the job, absolutely
Mm-hmm.
destroying their team in the process. Of course, you can learn by trial and error, but you're going to destroy that team in the process.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, okay, great, great. Now you've learned all the mistakes. Let's just place you on a new team because you're never going
Yeah.
to work with those people again. Then there's the people who train their leaders, but they only train the leaders. There's no
Mm-hmm.
training for anyone below the leader. And then
Mm-hmm.
they both feel, okay, the company does not want to invest in me. The company doesn't see my value. And
Yeah.
now there's a knowledge gap between the leader and the team.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they don't know what to. They're like, well, my leader has so much trainings all the time, but doesn't spend much time with us.
Uh-huh.
So now that leader must be trained in so many things that we don't
Mm-hmm.
know about. So we're going to come with everything to that leader.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that. So as I'm listening to you, the one thing that I think about is the one mistake that a lot of leaders make is they're always focused on managing up. They want to make sure that their boss understands all the things that they're doing. So they're spending so much time talking up that they very rarely talk down. And the reality is, if you take care of the people down here, you're going to be on your boss's radar because your team is going to be kicking it out of the park. They're going to be knocking the walls down, kicking butt, taking names, exceeding expectation. And your boss is going to want to know, what the hell are you doing over there? That these people are showing up in this way for you so that I can then rinse and repeat that over here with your peers. They're going to want to know. They're going to want to talk to you because you've created an environment and a team that's high performing and really producing measurable results for the organization. So you're if you take care of the people, the work will get done at a level beyond what you even expected, and it's going to also create opportunities for you with the levels up. So they're focused their attention here versus focusing their attention in the right, I think, in the right direction.
Yeah, like, again, it all comes down to action and outcomes. And
Action and
oftentimes people
outcomes.
get caught, they get caught in, oh, I want to tell my superiors about all the KPIs that
Mm-hmm.
we are going to track in the future. And it's like, well, they don't care. And it's the same as you don't care me talking about what I'm going to do in the future. You want to know what I'm doing right now.
Now,
We can
today.
talk about the vision, but if I have the same vision for the next 10 years and they keep on bringing, oh, yes, it will get done next year. Next year, I'll focus on that vision. Well, that's
Mm-hmm.
all hot air. It's
Yeah.
like, what are you doing right now
Mm-hmm.
to make that vision become realized in the next
Mm-hmm.
6 months, 12 months, 10 years?
Mm-hmm.
But that's what they want to see and that's what they want to hear.
Yeah. The one thing I will also say is this, right? I I don't want employees to get discouraged, right? Because I also think that another thing that happens with conditioning is keep your head down, work hard. Eventually, they'll recognize you. And that is not accurate, right? You also have to be willing and able to advocate for yourself, right? And have the right conversations to make sure that your leadership is aware of what you're doing, the impact that you as an individual are having within the organization and how that is contributing to these outcomes and these results. But if you're not having those conversations with the right people, you're just hoping and praying and wishing, right, that someone eventually taps you on the shoulder for that next thing. You're doing yourself a disservice. At the end of the day, your boss is not sitting around thinking about your career trajectory. They're not thinking about your career advancement. It's your career is your responsibility. I like to tell my clients that you are the CEO of your career and you have to treat your career like a business. While you work in a corporate environment, you are your business. And so business owners, CEOs create opportunities. So, how are you creating opportunities for yourself? Who needs to know you? Who needs to know you? Not who do you need to know? Who needs to know you? And I make sure that they have a hit list, right? And I say hit list in a positive way, not as in a assassination type of way, but in a positive way. Who are the three executives that you don't normally interact with, but that your work does support, right? Their goals, their mission. Whose radar do you need do you need to be on? And then schedule time with them. Don't waste it. Be prepared, but make sure that that is a conversation that they want to have with you ongoing. And they're like, in the next 3 months, let's get together again. Make sure that you're leveraging those opportunities, creating them and leveraging them in the right way. Leverage is key.
I love that because that's something that people always overlook, that they put themselves in the box. They're like, okay, this is my job description. I'm just going to follow the job description to a T.
Mhm,
And hopefully I'll get recognized someday that, wow, this person has been following their job description for the last 10 years.
mhm,
Let's add a line, or let's just give them things that are not in their job description and see if they do them anyway. And that's how it
mhm,
goes for a long time, that people who don't set boundaries, and they're like, yes, I'll take on every project. Oh, I'll be recognized for all of this extra work I'm doing. And very, very often that just gets overlooked as, wow, this person says
mhm,
yes to everything. I don't even have to ask them. They're going to do all of this extra work. They're not even trying to negotiate with me or speak up about it. They'll just do the work and they're happy doing it.
mhm.
And
Yeah,
that's how they get overlooked, because they
yeah,
don't speak up about it. But
yeah.
as you say, you present and be like, hey, I've been doing this extra work for the last 6 months, 12 months,
Mhm,
2 years, and I'm getting pretty proficient at it. I could train the rest of the team or in a new role. Like put me as a training coordinator, and I can train the
mhm,
team on this. And then everyone will be proficient in this role. This is some it, I feel that this in this day and age, people need to get more creative on
mhm,
not just having a job description that's handed to them, but stepping up, speaking up, and not just looking for a pay raise. It's like, okay, you can negotiate, but also be creative. Bring some extra
mhm,
outcome out of it. Being
mhm.
constructive. How can we move the company forward?
Yeah,
Because then it becomes again a two-way conversation. It's like, yes, this person is showing initiative. This person
yeah.
is showing they have a vision and a future here, so they're
Mhm.
worth investing in. Rather than
Yes.
a lot of people, they just stick in the same job, they don't set boundaries, then they get burnt out and exhausted, and they say, well, if I was only paid more money, I'd be happy here.
Mhm. Yeah, no, like these are some of the things that I talked about in my training last night. So you are like, I feel like you were there, Eugene. Feel like you were there. But it's really important that, so if you want to be seen as a leader, leaders don't say yes to everything. Leaders are very strategic and intentional about the things that they take on, the things that they do. They focus their time and attention on high value things, not low value things, right? Low value things are the things that they delegate. Delegation is key. So it's really important that if you want to be seen as a leader, you need to be showing up as a leader today. Not like, oh, I'll show up as a leader when I get the job or when I get the promotion. No, you need to demonstrate your ability to lead before you get it, because leadership is looking for, do you have the skill set that we need in this role? So think about the role that you have your eyes on and how you would show up differently and perform in that role. That is, and then start doing that now. They need to see that on display. A lot of times I have spent, since I focus a lot on women, but I also have worked with some men, but I focus a lot on women because I'm a woman, right? And I've observed my team, and made observations, to just kind of sit back and take them in, right? And see how they perform and behave in certain environments. And one of the things that I've noticed was that they could be the first in the room besides myself, long conference, also chairs around the wall. And most of the women wouldn't sit at the table. They would literally take a chair on the periphery of the room. Now, the ones that would sit at the table, they would take on the role of like helpers, right? I can take the notes, I can take the meeting minutes, right? Um, if lunch wasn't ordered, I can give everyone's lunch order. But my favorite was the people who showed up to the meeting late. The women would literally start making themselves smaller. They start moving their things in to create space, scooting their chair over, opening up space for a latecomer to get in. Now, you've missed 5 or 10 minutes of the whole conversation because you are focused on the latecomers finding a seat, Why is that your problem? Why is that your business? And I shared with the ladies last night. I'm like, how you are showing up in those times, that is what is on display. So how you show up is how people see you. So if you want them to see you as a leader, are you demonstrating your leadership ability, your leadership skills? Or are you showing up as the helper, the assistant? Taking the notes, that's cool. You're helping. But what I want to see is your thought leadership. I want to see your ability to have strategic thought processes and share not observations, but solutions to the problems that we're talking about. Have you prepared yourself to look at the agenda, understand what the topics are, have a point of view about what is going to be discussed, contribute things of value, not just talking to hear the sound of your own voice, although it's beautiful. Everyone's voice is beautiful, Eugene, but contribute things of value. You want that is your that's kind of like your audition, if you will. Leaders are looking for that. We remember everybody, right? How do you want to be remembered is the question. Do you want to be remembered as someone who brings solution, who has great thoughts, that can really go far? Or do you want to be seen as the problem child, the person who always is bringing a problem, who's a Debbie Downer, that's not going to work, very negative Nancy type of thing? How do you want to be remembered? Those are really important aspects, I think, for people to really think about as they take control of their careers. And the other thing I would say is, what is your personal brand? Do you know what your personal brand is? How are you spoken about in rooms that you're not in? And is your name coming up in the right conversation as someone who's ready for X opportunity or X role? Is your name coming up in those conversations? And if not, why not? We tend to want to understand how people see us. We ask the people that we like working with or that like working with us. Some of the best information that you can get about how you're showing up or how you're seen and experienced in the work environment is to talk to the person that you don't like working with or that you have a little bit of a conflict with, because they're going to tell you the real things as to why it's difficult, that relationship is difficult in working together. And that's where your real growth opportunity can come from.
These were the gold nuggets we were talking about in the last conversation. Uh, it's again a lot of people avoiding conflict and
Mm-hmm,
avoiding being seen as dumb or being seen as being wrong or sharing the wrong opinion. And
mm-hmm,
it's once you get over that fear that, oh, I might not have the same opinion as someone else, it's like great, don't have the same opinion as someone else. If someone shares their opinion, try and play the devil's advocate, not for the sake of kicking up a fuss. Sometimes I've done
mm-hmm,
it just because I'm like, yes, I completely agree with you, but let's play devil's advocate and say, okay, what if this is completely wrong? What would we do then? What's the
mm-hmm,
plan B? And they're like, oh, but this will work for sure. And I'm like, okay, but let's just play. What if it goes wrong? And it happens from time again that it does go wrong. And it's like,
mm-hmm,
okay, and now we have a plan B. We have something in place. We have something that we can suggest. And it was like, oh, you're just trying to kick up a fuss. And people are like, just sit back and don't say anything and just nod your head, just like a bobblehead. And it's like, or I can challenge someone, help them to think outside the box. In a way, I'm helping them.
mm-hmm,
And even just the simple things, putting in those reps of making yourself uncomfortable in those rooms. It's like, whoa, I'm getting really comfortable and making myself uncomfortable in these rooms. And people are starting to recognize me for making everyone else uncomfortable in these rooms. And it's not that you're, let's say, distracting people, but you're disrupting them and making them think differently. So it's again, it's the people pleasers who see it as, I don't want to distract from the main topic. I don't want to disagree with someone. I don't
mm-hmm,
want to feel like I'm putting someone else out of their way, where they're
Yeah.
really coming over as, oh, this is a pushover and this is someone who can, again, take all the notes for me. I don't have to worry about it. I can always depend on them. I don't have to
Mhm.
worry about showing up to the meeting on time.
Yeah.
Whereas, and that's exactly how they end up painting themselves.
Yes.
Whereas if you come in and you're like, okay, I'm taking the notes because I know no one else is going to do them, or I'm going to do the notes because it means I'm paying attention. It means that I
Mhm.
can be more attentive in this meeting if I am listening and if I'm
Mhm.
taking notes to help me remember going forward. This is part of my growth, not
Mhm.
to give them to someone else who might be late. I can still
Right.
choose if I want to give them to someone, but I don't have to.
Mhm. Right.
This is my space. If someone
Mhm.
comes late, that's on them. They can come 5 minutes early next time.
Yeah.
They can scooch up if they want, but I'm not making space for them. And then it's like, I've been taking those for the past 6 months. I can definitely have a valid opinion on what's happened in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
And if someone disagrees with me and says, "Oh, we don't respect your opinion" or whatever, that's that doesn't invalidate my opinion. That's their opinion. If they think my
Yeah.
opinion's wrong, that's just their opinion. That's just what they think.
Mhm.
It doesn't invalidate what I say, and that's just them deflecting. And
Mhm.
it's simply changing and reframing the narrative in these
Mhm.
small ways
Yes.
makes the
Yes.
biggest difference in business or in any workplace or any team, even in sports.
Yes.
Just because someone
You're
doesn't
so
agree with
right.
you.
Mhm. You're so right. So, it's interesting that you said I really feel, Eugene, like you were in my training last night. Because we talked about reframing but we focused on reframing the relationship with rejection, right? Because a lot of times people don't ask. They won't even ask for a promotion. They won't even ask for what they feel they deserve because they fear the rejection, right? And here's the thing that I share is no, it's just data. It's just data. You won't die because someone said no, but you now will have information from which you can negotiate. Okay, so no, I can't have the promotion. I'm not ready. Okay, what do you need to see from me in the next 6 months to be willing to support my promotion? Right? What are the opportunities? Right? Where are my growth opportunities that would make me ready for promotion? So now you have no. Okay, now what? The next thing is to ask the right questions in order to understand what will make them ready to support that. What will make you ready in their eyes? Get the information so then you can do something with it. But if you just take the no and kind of go back and get discouraged and frustrated and upset, but you haven't asked a follow up, then that's on you. So you have to reframe your relationship with rejection to be no is not never. It's just now it means I need to negotiate and ask further questions from which I can take action to bring me back full circle to this conversation. And and then the answer will be different.
I love that. I really feel like whenever I start talking, it's like, yeah, maybe I was a fly in the wall in all of your conversations because we just keep on like bouncing off each other. So no, I
Okay.
was not. I was not in your trainings, but what I love about that is that we are we resonate so much in what we teach. And I'm like, great,
Yes,
I'm not the only one. This
you're
is
not.
not a cookie cutter approach, I know, but I'm not the only one thinking this way. I'm not the only one helping people to be like, this is the way Eugene thinks. And it's like, oh, but that's the way Eugene thinks. That's not going to work for me. And that's the narrative that holds them back.
Mm-hmm.
But it's
It
great.
really is.
It's great. Dana's on the same wavelength and helping people just get out there and be like, let's reframe this. Let's see this from a
Yeah,
different perspective and see where that gets you.
absolutely.
The perspective
Absolutely.
you've had for the past 20 years probably hasn't been working for you. Let's try something different.
Listen, here's the thing. If everything you knew to do would result in the outcome that you were hoping for, you would be there already. You wouldn't need a Eugene. You wouldn't need a Dana. But obviously, if you're not where you want to be, where you think you should be, then you need to try something different. And I think what we've both tried different approaches, and it has resulted in the outcomes that we both desired. So there's got to be something to it. Then more than one of us is doing it.
So for anyone who wants to, this training is available for anyone listening. I
Yeah,
really hope so. It's like
yeah.
get in on Dana's training. What's the best place for them to find this training?
So the training it's called the Get Paid Formula training, and it's completely free. I will share the link with you, Eugene, because that way you can share it with your audience as part of the when you drop the episode. But yeah, it's completely free, and I do it every week. And come one, come all, join us in the conversation. I want to make sure that my goal is to help individuals get positioned, promoted, and paid, right? That is that without burning out, because you don't have to work twice as hard or grind yourself into the ground to get ahead. You can have a thriving professional career and a thriving personal life. And you can do it without having to give up your Saturday nights, your weekends, and all of that, and really be happy. So that's the goal and the mission that I'm on, which is why you and I really kind of vibe. We've crashed and burned, so you don't have to, is really what I think we're saying, Eugene, right?
That's exactly it. We've crashed and burned, so you don't have to.
That should be our tagline.
That really should. I'm changing my LinkedIn banner right now. Crash and burn, so you don't have to.
Yes, trust me. Look, we're trying to save, right? We're trying to help people from doing what we've done. I mean, you shared a bit about your burnout, right? And I will share a little bit about mine because similar to you, I was doing all the things, right, that society said we're supposed to do, and externally, my career was doing the things, right? But I was also raising my family and putting myself through college. I got through my degree, my undergraduate, my graduate degree, and working and growing my career and taking care of the family. But I literally lost myself in the process. I'm 5'3" for 63 inches. I think that's if you put it all together. And I was 287 pounds. And my body was certainly keeping score of all the missed skipped lunches because my schedule was packed back to back. I didn't have time to think, take a lunch, and let alone, nearly go to the ladies' room. And if I did have a meal, it was generally through the drive-through because if I wasn't at the office, I was carting a kid somewhere. Because I have, half a dozen. Half a dozen. So my time was not my own. But I caught my reflection in my kitchen window, and I didn't recognize the woman staring back at me, and I certainly didn't realize how I had gotten there. And I knew it wasn't overnight, but I also knew that something really had to change because like you, I was doing the thing, but I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy. And I was doing everything that I was told to do, right? And I hadn't really achieved the level of success that I really wanted, um, professionally or personally. And I just kept feeling like I was on the rat wheel or whatever it's called, what I mean, the
Yeah, it's like a
hamster
hamster
wheel.
wheel. Yeah.
I'm like, what is the animal? I know it's like our little rodent.
Sure, you could stick a rat on it too. I think your mic is dropped.
You're a hamster wheel, right? So, yeah, that's when I realized that hard work alone was not getting me where I wanted to be, and I something really needed to change. And so, um, I really needed to stop doing the hoping and praying, somebody tapping on the shoulder approach to things, and really take control of my career and truly treat my career as my business. And I became the CEO of my career in that time. And that is what allowed me to really get to the point of being at the executive role. And being able to lose the weight and really have a life that I thoroughly enjoy, and have time to do the things that really matter the most to me. Traveling, spending time with my family, um, spending time with my grandkids, right? And so, um, my granddaughter's birthday is today. She's a whole 6 years old. It's amazing. Best job in the world ever, hands down. Grandma, I love being a mom, but being a grandma is like the upper echelon,
You
let
get
me
to
tell
hand
you.
them back.
You get to hand them back. But it wasn't until my grandmother used to say, when you have your own grandchildren, you'll understand, right? I didn't think after having my kids that my heart could get any bigger, any fuller. And my granddaughter Ruby June, this is her birthday. I remember being in the room when she was born. My heart expansion that happens in that moment is surreal. It is. I was like, this is what my grandma was talking about. Didn't even know my heart could get any bigger. And the smile on my face, when I think about her, my heart smiles, I just light up. And just watching her grow and evolve has just been an absolute joy and a pleasure to, I can't wait for the woman she is going to be, because let me tell you, the world is not ready. The world is not ready for her, but she is certainly ready for the world. So I am thoroughly excited. And I can't wait for her to get her grandma present, because I sent her a delivery today. So I can't wait for her to get it.
Oh, I love
I'm,
that. I love that.
I'm out in Vegas, today. So she's in the great state of Wisconsin. So I had to make sure that she knew I was thinking about her. And the FaceTime just won't do.
No, FaceTime just doesn't work. I've even
Doesn't
been
cut it.
doing
Doesn't cut
I've been doing let's say live workshops on like meaningful conversations and connections with people,
it.
and I was like, because of my job capacity I travel a lot. I was like, look,
Mhm.
what we can do is we'll do once a month in person, and then the other ones we'll do on Zoom. And straight up they were like, no, we don't want to do Zoom. They're traumatized from Zoom from COVID, and they're like, we don't want to do Zoom calls. If we want to do Zoom calls, we would not be here in person.
Yeah. No, that personal connection is really like really key. And I get that a lot of organizations are the return to work is now expanding. Like we kind of had this hybrid for a while, and now a lot of organizations are really kind of doing the back to office, right? We have these buildings that we're lighting and heating people. We actually want butts and seats. But there is a value to being in person with your colleagues. That connection is definitely undeniable. I do think, though, there is something to be said for allowing your employees, your workforce, to have the flexibility that they need, to be able to to flow, right? With how often they're in the office, how often they're not in the office. Because I think that while organizations have these structures that they want to have filled because they're lighting and heating them, there are other aspects of your employees' lives that have also shifted because of COVID. And so how they show up in those other parts of their lives for their kids, pick up, drop off, things of that nature. There are some daycares that have closed and things of that nature that aren't there. They don't have the programming and things of that nature that were supporting these families in place anymore. So that now requires them to be a little more present, and they need the flexibility to be able to be great in both places, right? To bring their fullness in both places. But when you put too many restrictions in place, then it makes it difficult for those that you're leading. And a lot of senior executives don't have those same limitations as the people that work for them. Their salaries are, seven figures and more in a lot of cases, where they have staff to do the things that Jane doesn't have staff to do. And so I also think that when you are a leader, it's important not only to know the people that you're leading, but to also be able to place yourself in their shoes and their circumstances. Then you will begin to understand whether or not what you're asking of them is realistic.
Yes, yes. No, I feel that that's where there's a big disconnect sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And they feel it's like, well, if I can do it, you can do it. I've been doing this for 20 years, you can figure it out. And it's a complete disregard of someone's circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
And then that ends up in a massive disconnect, not only in the team or people taking ownership of their work, because it's like, well, if that's how I'm going to be treated when
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to show up at my best, at my capacity, it
Yeah.
creates people just throw their hands up in the air and go like, well,
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel valued here, so why am I showing up to give value? So
Yeah.
we made it very clear that it was, if you value your people and you trust your people, then
Mm-hmm.
they will do the work.
They will. They absolutely will. Even before COVID, I was the type of leader that I really don't care where you do it from. I don't care where you
As
do
long
it
as it
from.
gets done.
As long as it gets done and it's done at the level that really meets or exceeds my expectation, I don't care where you do it from. If you do it from the beach or you do it from, your patio or your kitchen table, it doesn't matter to me where you do it from. And that really, for me, being a mom, raising six children, because I am a mom of seven, but my last son Charles passed away at birth. So raising six kids, there were times where I had to do things from my kitchen table because if this one's got the flu and that one's got the chicken pox, I don't have a staff. I am the staff. The staff. And having, bosses who were understanding of that because they had similar situations at home. They could place themselves in my situation and they're like, look, I trust you. You have given me no reason not to trust you. You always deliver. You're always available. You're not off, playing, getting a spa day and saying you're working but not really working. They could trust me to deliver on the results. And for me, I became the same way. I kind of taken in. I've had good leaders and bad leaders, right? So I've taken in the good aspects of the things that I liked and the things that, it's kind of like eating fish, right? You eat the meat and spit out the bones. But as I think about the leader I want to be or the leader I wish I had, that's the leader I try to show up as. And so that was one of those things. It's like, until you give me a reason not to trust that you are performing and doing the things that we need you to do, then I'm going to trust you to do what you say you're going to do. That's like I am with my kids, right? Until you give me a reason not to trust you and give you all the rope you need.
It's exactly, rather than using analogies and treating your employees as kids, it's like, but no, in the same way, and not using the analogy where, oh, work is family. It's like, no, but your family is a team.
Yes.
You use a reverse analogy. You have to build that trust and loyalty within your team if you want to get anything done. So,
Mm-hmm.
Dana, thank you so much. We've gone well over the hour as well. So thank you so much for your time. And we
I'm
knew this was
sorry,
going to be the case
Eugene.
anyway. We knew this was
Yeah.
going to be the case from our last conversation. We were going to go way over.
Yeah. No, I
Thank you
really
so much. And I
enjoyed
really hope that everyone got value out of this.
I hope so too. I really enjoyed you sharing your platform with me. I enjoyed our first conversation. I was looking forward to this one. I've thoroughly enjoyed having this time with you and once again there's so many gems that came out of this. I'm like, I can't wait to watch it back. So I really hope that we can do this again in the future.